Hey, thanks for stopping by. My name's Thomas, and this is Zarbo Audio Projects. And today, we're going to be taking a peek at these two audio visualizers. We'll run through the assembly process, and we'll show them both in operation. Since I've been building quite a few Bluetooth radios and boomboxes and things like that, I've been looking for some interesting devices to incorporate into some of these designs, to snazz them up a little bit. Over the past few years, I found several different ones on AliExpress, ranging from a tiny 1-inch screen spectrum analyzer to a small but wide model which will display a stereo signal, as well as several others. These all use LCD video screens. I'm going to get right to it with these two kits, but stick around after the outro and we'll talk about these and a few more spectrum analyzers that I purchased in the past few years. I found this 16 row by 16 LED spectrum analyzer unit on AliExpress. It was roughly $32 and I decided to give it a try. I also found this cool VU meter with 32 LEDs on it for just under $9. This looked interesting because it's a very compact unit, not much bigger than the LED bars themselves. One cool thing about both of these boards is that although they are sold as kits technically, really the only soldering that you have to do is to solder on the LED boards to the circuit board themselves, and maybe a few connectors here or there. All of the small surface mount components have already been soldered to the board. But since there are quite a few parts involved with the larger spectrum analyzer board, I thought it would be a good idea to start with the smaller and easier to assemble VU meter. Unlike most of the LED VU meters of old, which had the rectangular LEDs stacked lengthwise, these are arranged with the wide dimension touching each other and spaced very closely, and there are 32 of them, 2 banks of 16 LEDs. So you're getting more information or more lights per inch. So let's get into it. Well, here are the instructions for this. I did print them out, and I always like to do that when they have them available. Sometimes the instructions for some of these things on AliExpress are not so good, but this one's actually half decent. It does mention the fact that the two LED bars, one of them is green, the other one is green-red, because for this particular unit, they're really divided into 4 segments, the first 3 being green, and then as the signal rises, it does go into the red color. So, and it looks like we've got instructions here on how to wire up the pin. Well, let's bust into this thing and see what's in this container here. Let's get it all out. Okay, well, we've got 2 LED boards, and as you can see, they're not long ways. They're actually packed in horizontally, so there's quite a few of them in there in a small space. That's pretty cool. So this one is the GG. This says green. I don't know if that's easy enough to see. So this is the first one, and then this would be the second one. This says GR, green-red. So they're going to go like this. Sorry. The green will go up till about here, and then the red ones will start lighting up. Basically, all you have to do is install the LED components the correct way, solder them up carefully on the back side, and then this controller lead here with the 4 pins on it, that goes into this, and I'm guessing the red would be the 12-volt input, which looks like it goes in this way, and then you would just solder that up. Now, as you can see, they're kind of small. The leads are kind of small, so when you solder this, probably going to want to use a soldering iron such as this with a fine point tip on it. If you do something broader or bigger, you might have a little bit of trouble with solder flowing where you don't want it. These are fairly closely spaced, but this doesn't look like it should be too hard to do. Just pay attention to, as I say, which LED bank goes in which position, and of course you can't reverse it. If you reverse this thing, since they're LEDs, since they're diodes and they're one-way current devices, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to unsolder it and try to resolder it, which would be a pain and probably destructive, but just pay attention to how it wants to be positioned. It should be okay. So let's get the soldering iron fired up and give this a try. Now before I actually start soldering these boards on, I have them positioned in the right place. I'm going to take off the little plastic protectant that is on the front of both of the LED strips. I already took it off this one. I'm going to take it off this because it actually hangs over a little bit, and what it does is it prevents these two boards from getting close enough together to actually, because I sort of want them to appear seamless. I don't want there to be a weird gap there. That would look funny. And the other thing I'm going to do before I start soldering is I'm going to actually put a piece of tape, a blue painter's tape, and wrap it around so that it will keep them pressed to the board, because I have to actually solder it upside down, and they're basically just going to fall out if I don't do that or something like it to hold this in place. So I'm going to just wrap that like that, wrap that like that. Feels nice and snug in there. So obviously I can't solder all of these pins, but I can solder a few of them, and that should be enough to hold it in place. So I take the tape off and solder the rest of them. Now I'm going to put this in my handy dandy alligator clip holder device, and it's important when you're soldering, you want to get comfortable so you can reach everything comfortably. And so I got my soldering iron here. We're up to temp. I got it set at 350 or so, 350 degrees. Clean it off in my tip cleaner here. Get the tip nice and clean. It's kind of hard to see, I know, I apologize. And one thing I am going to do before I actually start soldering is I'm going to take a little bit of soldering resin. I'm going to take a little bit of the soldering flux, and I'm going to put it on the holes themselves, on the pins, just a little bit, just to aid in the soldering process, because I want it to solder quick and easy. I don't want to have to put a lot of heat on for too long of a time. These are delicate components. Okay, so I've double checked everything. I'm sure that the pieces are positioned correctly, and it's time to get started soldering. Okay, I've soldered a few on this side. Now I'm going to solder a few on this side. I know you really can't see it. I'm going to see if I can get a better camera to get a little closer. See if I can get a better view here for you. I've got 3 or 4 done on each side. So now I can take the tape off, and now I can solder the rest of them up. Okay, well, I'm ready to solder the rest of them. I put some flux on, and I'm just going to have a go at it. I'm going to get pretty close. Hopefully I'm not in the way of the cameras, but if I am, I apologize. I do have to get kind of close to see what I'm doing. So I'm just touching the soldering iron to the solder and to the piece first. Just get it warmed up a bit, and the solder will just sort of flow right into it as it warms up. So I have the connector pin inserted properly. I'm going to take a little bit of the flux, just sort of touch it to each one of the pins. Don't need a whole lot. And then I'm going to solder this in. Let me try to do this in such a way that you can see it. This is hard to do. You YouTubers, man, you make this look easy, but this is not easy at all. I can do it, and I can run a video camera, but I can't do both at the same time. Okay, there's one. That's a little ugly, but yeah, you got that one. 2 end ones. Now the 2 middle ones. That's a little ugly, but I got that. Last one. Done. Okay. I've got this wired up now. The red line is going to 12 volts positive. The black line to the negative of the 12 volt power supply. And the other 2 leads are negative and positive for one input. I've got it just connected to my phone. I don't have it connected to a speaker. You're not going to be able to hear what's going on. but you will be able to see, and that's the whole point of this thing. So let me turn the power supply on. Okay, I think I just saw something there. That looked good. And let me turn my music on. Oh, and there we go. Okay, it looks like it's working. We've got that's pretty quick. It's responsive, and it seems like the very first setting that it's at gives you, which is, I would say, my preferred mode of operation, which is occasionally every second or a half second or so, it leaves the peak up there, and then the peak falls back to the main bar as it fluctuates with the sound level. That's actually the one I like the most. I was kind of hoping that would be the default, because this is adjustable, but it has, well, I'll disconnect it accidentally if I move it, but it has one button to control everything. I mean, all the different modes, the rate at which it falls and rises, everything is controlled by one button. Well, now that I was able to successfully assemble the VU meter kit, let's try to tackle the more complicated spectrum analyzer kit. Okay, well, I've got the instructions for the spectrum analyzer printed out, and it shows me a picture of one of the LED bars, and it shows the two leads as being the positive side and all of these being the negative side, and that's about it. 5 volts, 600 milliamps, and you need to weld it yourself. I was planning on soldering it, but okay. And then it goes on to tell you how to operate the different modes and stuff, but that's it. There's no instructions. So let's take the thing out and see if it will shed any light on how this thing's supposed to get put together. Got a few packages here, and these feel pretty heavy, pretty substantial. Let's see. All right, well, first one here, this one is obviously the LED panel, because it's there's nothing else on it. And this, again, when I say kit, I purchased these as kits, but really the business end is already installed. The jack, input jack for the signal, the input jack for the power, and the 3 boards that connect these 2 boards together once they're completed. They're already soldered on, including the buttons here. It's all done, which is great, because these little surface mount things are pretty stinking hard to solder if you're just a guy with a soldering iron, especially if you're as ham-fisted as I am. Yeah, it's no fun to do. So it's good that this is already finished. So, but this is the board we're actually going to be doing the work on, and it doesn't look too difficult. It outlines the frequency range in hertz that this board will cover, and pardon, you got 32 hertz, 64, 96 hertz, 128 hertz, 160, 192, 256. Wow, that's like a big concentration in the bass area. I'm not used to them having quite so much. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, getting close to half of the column is reserved for what I would call bass. Then we got 256, 320 hertz, 480, 640, 800, 1024 hertz, 2048, 4096, 8000, and 16000. Well, I guess it's just to make the music dance and look cool, but to be honest with you, these last 3, 4000, 8000, and 16000, these would be probably the only ones that wouldn't be used in the typical two-way crossover. You know, your typical small woofer two-way speaker is going to cross probably, I don't know, 1800 to 22, 23, 2400 hertz. So that's kind of humorous. Not that the woofer's not playing above that, it is, but that's just a lot of real estate dedicated to the bass frequencies. But that's okay. I like bass. So it looks like we got boards. They're going to need to be installed, and then we have it looks like 1, 2, 3 sections that are going to need to be soldered to this to attach, you can see it outlined with little white rectangles, to attach this board, to plug this board into this board. So again, with no instructions, I'm kind of flying blind, but let's dig into this bag and see what else we have here. All right, we've got a cable, USB to whatever that is, barrel jack. That's for the power. That's for the power, 5-volt power. This uses 5 volts. We have a splitter, 3.5 millimeter jack to get signal from our device that plays to this, as well as to an amplification setup. And we have a whole lot of LED panels. These are all green, if I recall. It's been a few months since I ordered this, but I think they're all green, so no matter which one you put, as long as you put it in the board the right way, they should be okay, because they are all green LEDs. The VU meter that I assembled, that one was green on the bottom and green and red on the top. And we've got a few little doodads here. Let me get into this and see what this is. It's all small. All right, these are the 3 connector pins that are going to join this board when it's populated with LEDs to the main motherboard. So we got a big one, and another big one, and a small one. And then we have some standoffs, some brass standoffs. Boy, these are tiny. Teeny tiny brass standoffs to actually mount this finished board, to the bottom motherboard. And that should make a nice tidy little package when it's done. The only thing I got to figure out is, how do these pins mount in here so I know which part to solder to this. Let me try this. I'll just stick this in here like this. That seems like that goes in pretty well, I guess. If I try this, the end with the shorter pins and plug it in, that plugs in too. I don't actually know which is the proper way of doing it. So, let me see. Let me just put these through. Let me do it so you can see it. Put these through that way. Well, that makes sense to do it that way because there's very small little protrusions. If you put it through where the long end of the pin is going through, it seems like it's sticking out needlessly. So I'm going to go make an executive decision that the small protrusion on these pins is what gets soldered to this board, and then the long end is what is going to plug into the socket on the main motherboard. So there, I think I figured that out. And then as far as the LEDs themselves, I know the positive end is the one with just the 2 leads, because the instructions say that. Positive, and I assume that's positive. This side's negative. So I guess if you're almost sort of smart, you can sort of figure this out without the instructions, if you think about it a little bit, which I don't always think about things, but I probably should. Well, let me put this first LED bar in there. See if I can get it in. And it's a little snug. Make sure I'm getting close to the openings. Oh, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Nothing's as good as it used to be. One of these pins is bent ever so slightly. Let me just tweak it, just with a minor little tweak. There it goes. Bing. All right. So there's a lot of little thingies that have to get soldered. I think what I'll probably do is press with my finger and take the solder, put it here, get my iron, and then go like this and solder 1 or 2 of them in until I have this set in there fully, and then I'll put the next one in, etc., and so on and so forth. So that's probably how that's supposed to be done. As far as these little pins, I'm not sure what side I should solder them on. Well, actually, if this attaches like this, and it seems as if it does, then I'm going to have to put this way and solder like that. Well, let me actually just hold that and try to install one of these LED boards on top, because I don't know if you can see, but these little pins from this pin here, they protrude, and let me get another one. That one's bent. I would think that it should be short enough where it would fit underneath this LED and not cause interference issues if it's well designed. And yes, that LED does fit all the way against the board, and this is still able to sit flush against this. So I guess I figured that out. Well, these definitely need to get soldered in. These pin connector pins that bridge the main motherboard to this LED board, they have to get soldered in first, because if I accidentally solder an LED panel in over top of where this is supposed to go, well, good luck. I'll be really stuck. So, okay, I'll solder these pins in. It doesn't look like there's any special way they go. So let me do that first, and then I'll proceed to solder in the LED boards. Here we go with a little bit of admittedly boring footage of me soldering those pins in. I just didn't want to leave that part out completely, but nothing too exciting here. Just make sure you get a good solder joint and don't bridge any two of them together. And that's basically it. Okay, I think that part's done. I have to do that first before I solder on the LED sockets. Well, here's the test. Let me put this, try to plug this into the motherboard and see if it fits. Probably should lift this up. Let me give you guys a view of this too. That way, if it doesn't work, we can all view my failure together. Oops. Well, it works. It does fit. Now let me pry it apart and solder on the LED panels. And here I am with my super duper ninja soldering skills, placing the LED bar graph display units into the circuit board, soldering them up. Took a little while. I think it was much more difficult actually because of the having to give a view to the camera, so that really slowed me down quite a bit. I would have been able to do a better job faster if I didn't have that. And of course I'm gonna super slow-mo, or actually this isn't slow-mo, this is real time. This was my best single line of soldering that I did on this whole project, so of course I'm gonna highlight that. Not that any of them were all that good, they were a little blobby, but they did all work and it functioned first time. So, but yep, this is duplicate this 16 times, and that's basically what the whole process was. I won't bore you with the whole thing, but it was a lot of soldering, and if you could hear what I was doing, you probably would hear a little bit of air blowing, because as I was trying to blow the solder fumes away from my face, that stuff's not good for you. Well, I got it plugged in. I just powered it up. We've got lights. We had lights. Now we got one light here at the bottom. Let me try that again. Okay, I got a little bit of a welcome screen here, and I got all the bottom lights are lit up. So, see if I can get that to sit there. Let me try playing a song, see what it does. Oh yes, we have spectrum analyzation. On one of these screens, it's going wavy back and forth. It's not doing that in real life, obviously. But it looks to me like it works. Now I can take it apart and put the standoffs in and get it all together. But wonder of wonders, I didn't screw this up. I'm getting a little bleary-eyed there at the end. It might be better to take it in a couple of steps, but it looks like I managed to pull it off. So now to put it together, and then we'll have a talk about how it performs. So for now, let me just revel in my success. Well, that wasn't too bad to put that together. I probably spent about 40 minutes or so on assembly, and I think the extra time that I spent going over the parts, laying them out, making sure everything fits just right was really time well spent. I want to give you a little word of advice though. You want to take any instructions that you get from any of these devices, from AliExpress or Banggood or wherever, you want to take them with a grain of salt, because I've had instructions range from vague to just plain wrong, to be honest with you. One of the things that you can do is, wherever you bought it from, look at the reviews of that particular product. A lot of times some of the people that ordered it and bought it and assembled it will have some good insights on how you really should put the thing together. Even if it's not where you bought it from. If you see the product and you see other sellers that are selling the product that looks basically the same, a lot of sellers sell the same exact thing. Check with some of those too, even if it's not where you bought it from. There's a good chance that somebody will have gone through the process of putting it together, testing it out, and will be able to give you a little bit of information that would help you. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this episode, and if you just wanted to see these two units assembled and put through their paces real quick, you can duck out now. But if you want to see more spectrum analyzers, some of which are still available, stick around after the quick outro, and we'll be right back. Well, yeah, I was going to wax poetic for several minutes about how I grew to love spectrum analyzers at a young age, and my first cassette deck with the VU meters and all that kind of stuff, but I just ran out of time. This video is too long already, so I'm going to sort of keep this short, but just showing some video on the screen of some different spectrum analyzers that I purchased in the last few years. Some of them are still available, some of them not. I will put links to what I can find that is still available, but this one is, I know, the long wide one. This one here this is a green screen one. It has some cool different options, but there's also a color screen version of this that works actually a little bit differently. They're about a 1-inch diagonal screen, this one and the other one with the color screen. And they're pretty cool. I mean, they're small, and you can fit them in a lot of different places. If you're making a small Bluetooth radio or something, it'd probably be pretty cool. But this one here, this is my choice. I forgot I had this one. Digging up my stuff to make this video, I came across this, and I'm like, whoa. You'll see when it starts to work, when it gets in operation, how nice it is. But got a beautiful screen. The graphics are nice. A lot of different bands, even a reflection at the bottom. It's got a little adjustment knob at the top for input sensitivity, so that makes things real easy. It has tons and tons of different visualizations, and they're all like pretty much what I would consider HD high quality. Even like this retro VU meter, and it's super accurate looking. I mean, you could almost believe that this is an actual VU meter, is how good it is. But alas, this one, I spent about $100 or so on eBay several years back, and I can't find that. And as far as I know, it's not available anymore, which really stinks, because I'd love to pick up another one of those. I know I have one that I haven't used yet, but it would be nice to put something like this in a radio. But yeah, that one's just not available anymore, unfortunately. But this is what started it all. Purchased this 12 or 13 years ago as a kit, and I lost one of the pieces, one of the surface mount pieces in the carpet, and had to order another one. Yeah, I looked and looked and looked for that stupid thing. I ran the vacuum. I looked for a half hour, and I still never found it. So I had to spend $8 to get a $2 part shipped to me so I could finish it. But anyway, it's nice. It still works pretty good. It's just a little old looking compared to the one we just finished. Yeah, this one looks really nice. I mean, it's vibrant and bright. The LEDs go almost all the way to the edge of the column that they're sitting in. It's really nice, actually. I'm pretty happy with it. Well, I got to cut this short. It's time to end the video. Thanks a lot for sticking with me. I really do appreciate it. See you soon. Better run, stick man.
you.